What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday night as I adjust my camera. Sorry for the late start tonight. I am Josh McCarty. With me, as always, is Luka. Had a little traffic situation on the way home, frantically texting Luka about. So that's why we're starting a little bit later tonight. But we are here. We are still licking our wounds, so to speak, Luka, from the Bills' loss on Sunday night to the New England Patriots. But now that you've had a couple days to simmer on it and stew on it and take in the temperature of Bill's Mafia, how are you feeling?
I'm perfectly fine. First and foremost, I always forget that you're an hour behind. So, we start at 7 Eastern, and yet that would be 6 Central. And it's pretty tight to the work window there. So glad you can make it. Um, with the Bills, it's kind of like one of those things where it's been a couple days removed. It's, the questions or concerns and blah, blah, blah. All of that is still pretty prominent, honestly. And there's certain questions in my head of why, there hasn't been anything of a change really yet. Now that there's also the caveat of course, the bye week is looming around the corner from this next game, but and that's a more optimal time to do something change wise. But it really, the thing that in my head, and this is what I've been preaching, and we can even have a little bit of a discussion since this is less of a preview show like it normally would be because the game is on Monday night this week, and more so just a somewhat how we doing. The NFL is a crazy one, Josh, and I feel like this weekend was a perfect example of how if you don't show up to your full capacity, if you think you can just go through the motions and you can do whatever the hell you want because you are supposed to be the perennial Super Bowl contender or favorite, you will find yourself on the losing end of things. The Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Eagles all found themselves on the losing side of football games this past weekend in week 5. If you told anyone going into the season that there would be one weekend that all 4 of those teams collectively would lose, they would actually think you're nuts. Plus, you probably could make a lot of money on whatever that parlay is on the reverse. So you're absolutely betting it. And if you were the sicko that bet Broncos, Patriots, what is your Texans and Jags in a money line parlay, you are one. I need to talk to you more about other things too, because that is impressive in its own right. But and on the reverse, for what it's worth, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Titans all won this weekend. I mean, it's just that's the NFL, folks. And you there are certain times where if you're not getting your 100% output from what you are capable of, you can lose in this league. And the Bills found themselves on the losing side. And ultimately, it's the strangest feeling in the world after that Monday night game where the Chiefs lost to the Jags, where the Bills lost on Sunday night, and yet the weekend as a whole and where the leagues currently sits feels like a win for the Bills. So it's like a best case scenario as a Bills fan. So sitting here on Wednesday night, Josh, I'm feeling pretty good.
We're going to talk tonight about how we think the Bills are going forward, what the state of the team is. But I do want to talk right now a little bit about the state of the fan base because it does seem to be a divided bunch right now. One thing I would ask all of you to do out there is just be honest with yourself. How did you feel after the Chiefs lost or after the Eagles lost? The Ravens are a bit of a different story because right now they're dealing with so many injuries that it's really hard to even know what kind of team they are. And their 2 losses with Lamar Jackson were to the Bills and the Lions. So that's a little bit different story. I guess you could say the Chiefs too, but still a quality team. But I don't think that there's any reason to believe the Eagles are in trouble. I don't think there's really a whole lot of reason to believe the Chiefs are in any kind of serious trouble. So, it's just a bad game that didn't go your way. Yet when your team loses, it's very easy to feel like the sky is falling. And then I think if you kind of pay attention to sports talk radio, you pay attention to Twitter, you just talk to your friends, there's 2 sides of the coin. There's the side of, hey, if you'd have told me before the season started, we'd be 4-1. I'd have signed up for it in a heartbeat. And you sound ungrateful. And everybody's freaking out because of the first loss. And then the other side of it is like this defense can't stop a nosebleed. And you know, let Dr. Josh step in here and just kind of tell you all what's happening here. Now, I'm not really a doctor, even though when I met my now girlfriend, I told her I was. But I think I have an idea of what's happening here. I think, Luka, that when the Bills lost the first game, it gave everybody a green light to say the quiet part out loud, because the 3 games after the Ravens game was such a high that we kind of ignored all the red flags we saw. Like, that defense was pretty bad. And then, the Jets game was just kind of a game where we just watched the Jets throw up all over themselves and the Bills just show up and everything's fine. And then the Dolphins and Saints game goes by and you're like, huh, that was a little scarier. We could have lost that game if they didn't run into our punter 2 weeks in a row. But if you say out loud that you're worried about a team that is one of 2 undefeated teams in the league, then you sound greedy, you sound silly. So I think when the Bills finally played around with their food and lost a game, it gave everybody the ability to finally release the concerns that they've had, not just from the Patriots game, but from the Dolphins game, the Saints game, and lingering from that opening game against the Ravens, which is why, Luka, I do think that despite the fact that, in my opinion, the story of the Patriots game was more so on the offense and their inability to solve what the Patriots were doing on defense. So much of what Bills fans are talking about this week is the defense, because in a larger view, the defense is what looks like it's going to prevent this team from getting where they need to get to if they do get prevented from that. What do you think about my theory that the reason why people are saying so much this week is not just because, oh, it's panic after one loss? It's like, okay, now we can finally say it.
I'm with you on that 100%. I'm trying to think of like a comp for this, but it's just that one thing where you finally see a crack in the armor. You see something going on. There's stuff going on at work, and all of a sudden your boss is having an off day, and it feels like the time to pile on and just recognize their deficiencies and how they manage things in the office. And things could be good overall in the company and everything's fine, but all of a sudden it's finally like, hey, you're really bad at time management. You're always 5 minutes late to meetings where we're always running behind. Schedule's just backtracking. Next thing you know, that 4:30 meeting didn't kick off until 4:45, and you're bleeding into the back half of your day when you should be already on your commute home. It's that subtle little thing, an opportunity that a person looks at and goes, let me just get my 2 cents. The thing that I've been saying in the confine of my own living room, watching these games week in, week out, or at the stadium, just kind of internally saying to myself, this feels like an opportunity where maybe it can be said as an explanation to someone else who might not be seeing it the same way. And I like saying it like that because I don't think all of it is necessarily a massive like shot at the team or what's going on. It's just exactly as you said it. It's just the thing, the quiet thing we've been thinking of, where it's like, this is really why we find ourselves in this current state. Like, this is just why we sit the way that we do. And it's perfectly understandable when you just, wide shot, look at it all and just see what's taken place this entire season. It has been far from smooth the entire way. It's the least smooth 4-1 it feels like you possibly can be. And there was a blowout win in that mix, and yet it does feel that way. And I think the other part of it too is where, some people might be saying these things on deaf ears previous weeks because you just don't want to hear it because of the enjoyment of wins. Now, the loss fuels I say negativity because it's not like it's a cesspool of garbage out there, but at the same time, it just, you pick up on the negative comments a little bit more after a loss. You recognize the things being said, and those voices carry louder rather than in a winning week where it's like, you can always have that asterisk of, well, we did win, so we can move on and move forward. It's just one of those things that I feel like that's something you see among all fan bases in all sports, right? And it's just, there's a reason then why losing teams, you just see that stuff more often and it seems to snowball, is because you're stacking losses one after the next rather than having that break and ability to win games here on, here out, so that even your deficiencies are not being as loudly recognized. This is a rare NFL season that I even say it, where it's not even the Bills alone. It's everyone. There's a reason you see the AFC right now as Colts, Bills, what is it? Colts, Bills, Jags. Like it's all over the place. None of these teams are perfect. No, there's no juggernaut, true, perfect team that is absolutely going to run through everyone. Everyone has their question marks, deficiencies, issues, red flags, whatever you want to call it. That after a loss, you will hear that being brought up. I mean, in the Colts case, they go into LA, they lose that game in a somewhat tight fashion, and everyone's bringing up, other than the AD Mitchell stuff, everyone's just bringing up, well, maybe Danny Dimes can't quite get them over the hump offensively against a better opposition, and maybe this defense just isn't quite up to snuff of what we thought it was after they absolutely pounded the Dolphins on week 1, and so on and so forth. You have these things that are naturally brought up, but it's like after wins, no one's going to say those things because it's just on deaf ears anyways. Same kind of goes for the Bills. Felt like a little bit more recognized even after wins, especially after a Saints game where you would like to see them dominate and they didn't. But overall, you finally lose one, and I'm with you on the sentiment of simply, now this is the time to air out the dirty laundry a little bit and kind of get your 2 cents out there of what you think's going on, why you think things are negative, what you're recognizing as a fan, whether you're at home or at the games, so on and so forth. That it's all out there for everyone to see, and you actually want to, as a human or as a fan, you want to see an explanation for it rather than just enjoy the win and sit in the positivity of everything that comes with a win. The nice part about being the Bills, Josh, is simply those wins don't generally stack up, and also this is a pretty darn good team, and generally speaking, a pretty darn good coaching staff that you would like to think and expect that corrections will come and be made. And this is not something we're going to see snowball too bad. Mute.
Love having myself muted on the live show. Roy Collins, one of our favorites, chimes in saying, there are plenty of concerns with this team to keep fans nervous. I think right now there's 2 major concerns on this team. Well, I think 3. I think the wide receiver conversation did creep up again this week because of how strong the Patriots were with their man coverage. I also think there's a real concern about, can this team actually stop the run? And, we've been talking about, well, Hoyt and Ogunjobi and Oliver are going to come back, and that's 3 defensive linemen. And Milano will eventually be back, even though now he's going to miss week to week again. Shaq Thompson has looked strong. But I think right now, the thing that has fans most concerned is the fact that Tre'Davious White is a starting cornerback for this team. And I think now we have 5 weeks of evidence that tells us that that is not a solution. How right are, I guess my question is, how mad can we be at the Bills for being in this situation? Mike Shope brought it up today on WGR, a little bit I was able to listen to. And I thought it was an interesting question. The Bills did invest their first round pick in a cornerback, and they did take a day 3 cornerback, and you can't predict injuries. And they did end up, both of them getting hurt. So the fact that Dorian Strong, who is a day 3 pick, was already starting to rotate in with Tre'Davious White before he got hurt, tells you that the Bills' preference is not to have Tre'Davious White on the field. How upset can we realistically be that they're in a situation right now where Tre'Davious White is their best option?
Pretty damn upset. I mean, I was trying to think of a nicer way to put it, but no, I mean, the unfortunately, and I feel like we talked about this a little bit on our podcast that we recorded Monday. Was it late morning, early afternoon at that point? I'm still recovering sleep-wise from it. The Sunday night game, that is, not our podcast recording. It's like they put their eggs a little bit too aggressively in the rookie basket, and they didn't really do enough to truly give themselves a break glass in case of emergency. That idea to them was the Trey White situation, but it should have been apparent to them pretty damn quick that that's just not good enough. So realistically, as fans, and everyone else just sitting from the outside and looking at where that predicament is and that situation is. I guess your door C was, you drafted a day 3 guy that looked somewhat promising or is looking promising. He is just unfortunately hurt in his own right. But you would just like a team in a championship window to take things like that a little bit more serious rather than just lean on the potential of a rookie coming in for something as prominent as a starting boundary corner, a very important position. I mean, it's one of the blue chip positions in this league that being that Trey White is really your only decent option right now in-house. It's pretty frustrating from a fan perspective.
Yeah, I think that's true. And Roy Collins also says, I think he wouldn't be surprised if Bean tries to trade for a wide receiver. I'm with you. I think we saw this coming kind of from afar. You know, how bad was Daquan Hardy? I know that they wanted him to be a returner, but wasn't he promising as a cornerback? Where is Jordan Hancock here? He was having a promising spring and promising summer, and now he can't even get a jersey on game day. There are options in house, and I do think. Well, I'm going to ask you, and then I'll tell you what I think. How likely what would you put the odds that Brandon Bean makes a trade before the trade deadline, knowing that in 2017 he traded for Kelvin Benjamin, in 2022 he traded for, oh god, was it Rasul Douglas? No, Douglas was 23,
Yeah.
and then in 2024 he traded for Amari Cooper. So he's
Right.
been aggressive, relatively speaking, at the deadline. What's the percentage chance you think that Bean makes a move at the deadline?
I think there's good chances. I think I think there's good chances that he recognizes deficiencies. Or I said there's a great chance he recognizes the deficiencies. And then from there, he's going to do his due diligence to see what's available, I guess is the way to put that. And Brandon Bean is not the type, although I do think there's a little bit of stubbornness in him. Of course, referring to an interview I know you've brought up on previous podcast recordings and stuff like that. And it's in the space out there. I think there's a stubbornness level where he just wants to prove that it can still work. But at the same time, he's also someone that is willing to recognize when it's just quite not good enough. And he's not willing to accept that, even if he's stubborn to want to see it work out. I think the Amari Cooper trade kind of provided that look that he brought up even that point of still had one of the best offenses in the league, but he recognized early on in the season that there just needed to be a little bit more of an addition to the receiver group in order to get everyone into those roles that they needed to be at a better level. And, the Rasul Douglas trade was more of an injury spark that made that trade possible, but same thing. Injury happens, all of a sudden you recognize, oh shit, what we have is just not good enough in-house. And if we want to try to make something of the season, we need to go find something that will do it. He is very understanding and recognizing what can be done by the deadline and tries to find value in those trades as well, which I believe, I mean, you could say what you want about the Amari Cooper trade. I think the Amari Cooper trade, one, you didn't really truly give up. I mean, you gave up a 3rd round pick, but at the same time, it's like, what were you truly going to get out of that 3rd round pick? Could have been, something, but ultimately what you did get out of it was a clearly better receiver room in their appropriate spots that propelled them all the way to the AFC Championship. It's hard to truly criticize him for that. It wasn't the cleanest thing and it could have been better, but at the same time, those are the kinds of moves that you can respect a GM for. Those are the kinds of things that a GM needs to step in and just be like, I'm at least providing this coaching staff and this roster what I believe is a simple solution in season that can hopefully resolve whatever red flag issue you're recognizing early on. And I think the likelihood that something happens is, if I put a percentage on it, I would say at this moment, 55 to 60%, just because, and I only put it there because I believe that the evidence shows he's willing to do it. But then also it's not higher because you're not even really understanding truly what's available out there yet. You hear names like Reek Woolen and stuff like that, but it's just names being thrown out there, and or it's there's still a month till the trade deadline effectively. So we'll have to see how time progresses before I get more confident that a move's actually happening.
I I think the Bills are gonna make a move. I just think that there's too much going on this team that would warrant a move. The secondary is a mess right now outside of Cole Bishop and Benford and Rapp to an extent, I suppose. Um, I think run it back has a good point here. I think the linebackers have been somewhat disastrous this year too. Some of that has to do with the fact that Milano's been in and out of the lineup, mostly out. But I don't think Terrell Bernard is having a good season by his standards, and maybe that some of that is overcompensating for some other weaknesses on defense. But he has not played his best ball. Christian Benford has not played his best ball. Taron Johnson looks like he's on the decline. But I do think that if the Bills can find a cornerback, Reek Woolen probably pie in the sky. But what if it's someone like a Ronald McCreary from the Titans who's going into the last year of his deal? I know he's more of Roger McCreary, who's more of a slot, and that that's not necessarily where your weakness is. But beggars can't be choosers. There's Armour Davis, who they got off of waivers from Baltimore before the season started. He's an interesting prospect with good speed. I mean, you're not going to go out there and find Sauce Gardner. You're not going to go out there and find Derek Stingley. So you have to just find somebody that can hold it down. And in fact, one idea I saw float out today is if the Dolphins keep losing, what would you have to give up for Rasul Douglas? That's where we're at, folks. That's where we're at. But I do think that these Bills are going to have to find something on the outside, because I don't know that at this point, counting on Max Harrison as the solution is going to work. Run It Back said earlier, I saw a stat that the Bills DBs are allowing the most separation to opposing receivers, and receivers are getting the least amount of separation. Luka, have you heard of the website Summer Brain?
Well, I have because of
Because of
yourself.
I'm excited about it. It's Summer Sports, and it's this app within Summer Sports called Summer Brain. You can ask it any question. It's AI generated, and it's NFL stats. I've been loving it. Well, I saw Run It Back post that in chat. I was like, I'm gonna go check it out. Well, he's close, and it's not encouraging. The Bills DBs are actually giving up the third most separation in the league. They are behind the Lions and the Broncos, which strange. But they are the worst at getting separation, according to Summer Sports. So, separation can be measured in a variety of ways. Some sites use it based on like what the coverage is doing, and is the cornerback truly assigned to him, or is it a zone concept? Some is truly like, where's the nearest defender? Some is separation if they're targeted on the play. Some is just separation it can be a stat that, depending on who's looking at it, can give you two vastly different answers. So that's where I would say this doesn't sound encouraging. It matches up with what we're seeing on game day, but also realize it can be a little bit of a tricky stat. So a buddy of mine at work today asked me, are the Falcons live on Monday against your Bills? So I answered, oh, absolutely. I think right now, any team that can score points is live against this Bills defense, because I've yet to see this Bills defense really show that they can shut down any kind of competent offense. Just look at what the Saints were able to do. I know we're not going to do like a whole full-fledged Falcons preview right now. I know that they are really, you can see that they're struggling without Caleb McGarry. That's a loss they have not been able to overcome on their offensive line. They're still trying to figure out. I know this buddy. It was X, my buddy there, that asked me that at work. They are still trying to find another weapon in the passing game opposite Drake London. Is it Darnell Mooney, who's been dealing with the hamstring injury? I don't believe so. Seems like he's still slowed down quite a bit. Kyle Pitts has had a little bit of a resurgence, but at this point, teams are really just treating him more like a big slot. They aren't giving him the tight end treatment. Luka, you mentioned this probably 2 weeks ago when we knew this game was coming up. Shutting down the Falcons really does a lot like the Patriots at first start with the running backs. And they have a couple really good running backs. Have you seen anything from this Bills defense that makes you think it's going to be something they can slow down in the running game?
No, absolutely not. And I say that even where it's like the concerns I had going into the Patriots game were somewhat valid. And what I will do is a shining light, or at least a tip of the cap, a hand of flour, not flowers, to this Bills defense. they did kind of shut down the Patriots run game for the most part on that Sunday night effort. It's you all things considered, I think that's the way to put it, right? Considering what we had seen from this Bills defense weeks prior and everything like that, that is the version of the Bills shutting down the run offense for someone. But going back to reality, the Patriots are putting out Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson till he got hurt, and then Travion. It's like these guys aren't Bijan Robinson. these guys don't even sniff the level of a Bijan. And what I get concerned with when it comes to looking at that and the task that it is the Falcons' interior three, at least, are very, very, very good. They are potentially the best interior three in the league as a collective unit. It's hard to outdo them. I mean, Nuzul, Bergeron, and Lindstrom are beasts in the middle, and they are very, very good run blocking offensive linemen, especially. Where that becomes a problem is if you're able to control what's already a weakness for the Bills and start getting to that second level easily, which is what we know, something that the Bills are not exactly good with, and then allow Bijan to be untouched through that line of scrimmage. Oh, God. Asking, your Cole Bishops, Taylor Rapps, even the linebackers at that point, asking corners to step in and tackle a Bijan. Good luck. I will say there's one of my favorite bets this year, Josh, has been Bijan 150 all-purpose yards at it's generally around plus 200 to 300. I will be hitting that once again against these Bills, and I won't be surprised if that is dropped down to say a plus 180, because Bijan is an absolute matchup nightmare that Babbage and Sean McDermott better be just screw the pass game. Let Michael Penix beat you. We need to focus all efforts on run fits, being disciplined, and stopping Bijan, stopping number 7 from doing anything to us as much as we can. It needs to be the full sellout. And then, as you've put it, you do all this with Bijan, they still have another hammer that will be fresh coming off the bench in Tyler Algier that can absolutely run the ball efficiently himself. So he's not Bijan Robinson for a multitude of reasons, but Tyler Algier is a great secondary punch to put on a defense as you're wearing them down with Bijan. That the run offense for the Falcons is absolutely just a daunting task to, I don't even want to say limit, just keep that rush offense under 150 yards at total. That to me feels like a pretty good small win if you're a defense going into a week against them.
And flipping it around, I do think this Bills offense should be able to have some success against this Falcons defense. Now, they do have an eraser out there in AJ Terrell. He's going to be the best cornerback they've gone against probably since Sauce Gardner week 2. No, Christian Gonzalez last week. He's in that same tier as those guys. But this team, Luka, when they're in nickel, which is what the Bills are going to put them in the majority of the game, they have 4 rookies out there. And I don't know if that says something great about their draft class or says something about their roster, but it's 4 prospects I was actually high on. 3 definitely. Mm-hmm. You're talking about first-round pick Jalen Walker. You're talking about the first-round pick they traded up for in James Pierce, manning the edges. This one's going to hurt Bills fans. At safety, you have Xavier Watts, which can't you just go ahead and lock in the Xavier Watts interception on Monday night? Even if the Bills win, don't you just see that happening? Why did we take Landon Jackson over Xavier Watts, which, by the way, Luka and I agree with. But hey, just throwing it out there. We were very high on Xavier Watts.
Yeah.
And then their starting nickel corner is Billy Bowman Jr. Yeah. So this has a chance to be a foundational draft for the Falcons on defense. But when you talk about this being game 5 for them, they had a week off last week against the Bills offensive line that's fully intact. It's just hard to see 2 rookies manhandling Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. It does feel like this is the kind of game that the Bills offense should be able to dictate tempo, should be able to dictate what they want to do in the run game and the pass game. And they should be able to find matchups in the secondary that are basically whoever AJ Terrell isn't covering. Is there anything about this Falcons defense that gives you pause in the matchup with the Bills? Or is it like most matchups where as long as they play their game and they don't make the same mistakes we saw them make on Sunday night, which is fumbling twice and Josh Allen missing a wide open wide receiver, they probably will get their 30 points.
Xavier Watts has been a saving grace to this defense, I'll put it. I will say Divine Diablo has also been pretty damn good for them this season so far. I will say he's definitely a coverage linebacker. You know, just he's long, athletic. He can get to spaces. He's a very good coverage linebacker. He'd be a great Bills linebacker. It's just one of those things where though you take Xavier Watts, you take Diablo, you pull them aside, and then you're like, holy shit, this defense is rough around the edges to say the least. From a general fan perspective, this game just screams points, like points, points, points. Both defenses are an absolute struggle bus right now, and they're in a complete mismatch against their opposition when it comes to the Bills. As we talked about, they have no inkling of understanding on how to stop the run right now against one of the best running backs in the league. And then in the flip side, you're going against defending MVP Josh Allen and a very good offensive line who should be able to absolutely control and do what they appear to be wanting against this defense. I respect Jalon Walker. I respect James Pierce Jr. I think they can be good players in future years. They are not quite there yet. And Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown, respectively, should be able to manage their guy pretty simply with their vet experience and whatnot. It's going to be nice to hopefully kind of take a step back and at least get more comfortable. This is how I look at it offensively for the Bills. You just had a game that was probably one of the more down games offensively in a while against a Patriots team that definitely stepped up, understood how to play you a little bit. Mike Vrabel clearly understood what he needed to accomplish there and got the job done. And you looked lackadaisical, to say the least, going through the motions. So now you have an opportunity to kind of, right before the bye week, put your foot on the gas a little bit against a softer defensive opposition. You should absolutely be taking advantage of this opportunity. And I would like to think that Joe Brady feels like the kind of individual that wants to puff his chest out a little bit and remind individuals what this offense is capable of, especially coming off of something where a lot of people are questioning what's going on right now offensively for this team and why they are incapable, it feels like, to push the ball downfield, and why Josh Allen feels like as if he's just, at the highest of high level, just going through the motions and moving the chains as a struggle as he can sometimes and things like that. It's like, this is your opportunity when you look at that Falcons defense and go, we can exploit XYZ 1, 2, 3 and really get a lot of points and control a lot of this game through this, that I don't see an avenue for the Falcons. Jesse Bates III and Xavier Watts are a very good 1-2 in the safety position. Don't get me wrong. I think they'll be able to manage things on the back end for this Falcons team, but your safeties are the furthest ones from the ball, and they need to decipher things and fast. And from there, they're playing a guy named Josh Allen that can do whatever he wants at times, especially at his best. That I don't know where their answers lie if they were to even find any sort of defensive success.
I am going to ask Summer Brain while I make my next point. What is Josh Allen's career record indoors?
Oh, there you go.
I think it's pretty good. Okay. While we wait for that to come back, I think this will be a James Cook game. I think this is the kind of team that James Cook can really get loose on. What did I want to say about the Falcons? Penix. So you mentioned the fact this could be a shootout. Where do you stand on Michael Penix? I liked a lot of what I saw of him. Granted, small sample size last year, and we have to remember how good these coaches are on both sides of the ball. And you've seen it even with like Jaden Daniels, where they're catching up to him and then he has to adjust. You saw it year 2 with CJ Stroud. He's still yet to adjust. Penix, He came in, I think, the last month of the season when they benched him for Cousins, and he had a couple of really strong games. There's one that stands out on a night game against Jaden Daniels where they went to overtime. But I I don't know that presently, one, they have the offensive skill players outs outside of Bijan. Drake London's excellent. He'd be the best receiver on the Bills by a mile. But, um, or two, if he has the ability right now to go toe to toe with Josh Allen in a shootout. I feel like he's a little too mistake prone, and I haven't loved what I've seen from Penix in year 2. What do you think about Penix?
I Penix is an individual that I still believe there's stuff to figure out in the sense of I believe in promise that is there with Michael Penix. I think week one was not a liar in the sense of what Penix could be capable of, I guess is the way I'll put it. And if people don't remember week one, he did a great job keeping the Falcons in it and answering the bell against the Bucks, who are turning out to be an absolute stud force. No surprise to this individual in this chair in the NFL. He was going toe to toe with a Baker Mayfield in that case. And just unfortunately for him, did the things that he needed to do to get a game tying field goal and make it, go into overtime. And his kicker decided to screw him on that one. It's he can he's just mobile enough to extend plays. He's just smart. Like he is smart and capable enough to understand what he sees in front of him. And it's not as if the coverages and defenses that are being put out in front of him are complex. But yeah, the stat you bring it up it's the most confusing stat I've ever heard. And he just got his first win. What was it? 2 weeks ago now, where his team scored more than 7 points, or the team he's playing against scored more than 7 points and he won. That just happened. It's just one of those things where I don't quite understand it. And the inconsistencies are the concern. And you brought that up. Penix, I think, has the capabilities. It just sometimes you're left scratching your head as to what he's doing. But I will also say this. I am not the biggest Drake London fan. I will say. And Kyle Pitts, even if having a resurgence, stuff like that. I just think those aren't the kind of guys that can truly dominate play in, play out for a Michael Penix when you need them to, with where he's at in his career. So then in turn, your best offensive threat is Bijan, and the best way to get the ball to Bijan is just hand it off anyways. So I don't know. It's just a weird offense in my mind where it's really built to dominate from the inside with Bijan, and then the interior offensive line, as I even brought it up. I mean, their offensive line in general at full health is meant to be dominant. So I don't know. I think Penix can still be good. Will he go toe to toe with Josh Allen? Most likely not. But Penix is absolutely capable of running an efficient offense against this Bills defense in its current form. I have no doubts about that whatsoever. I mean, Spencer Rattler looked efficient and able to extend plays and doing everything that he could against this Bills defense. And I didn't think that was possible because Spencer Rattler to me is nothing compared to a Michael Penix, at least between the ears and understanding the game and understanding the position. So Michael Penix to me, like the biggest fault to Michael Penix is Michael Penix was in college for a long time, a very good quarterback in college for a long time. He's made of glass apparently. And it just was always injuries, shoulder, knee injuries, you name it. And so it was all about, he kind of lost a step in that time. He's lost a little bit of his arm strength in that time, but it's still there. And in between the ears, he is still a very smart and capable quarterback that I think he can do things well. The inconsistencies are just, to me, a little bit because he's young. And even though you might trust what he's seeing across the field, every once in a while, you might be able to get him because he just doesn't have the experience to maybe understand disguises and other things that are going on at a higher level that I think McDermott should be able to capitalize on. He is an individual that understands how to kind of get it by on rookie quarterbacks.
One thing I want to point out is there's a lot of thought like, okay, well, it's going to be a tough road environment for the Bills and it's going to be loud. Well, not really. And this is a point Bills fans should probably pay attention to because it's going to be their reality soon too. This stadium that they're in, Mercedes-Benz, whatever they call it, was built in 2017, but back in 2015 they switched to a PSL format, a personal seat license, where essentially you pay for the right to have your seat. to be able to purchase your seat at that point. So you're paying funds to be able to then purchase your seat.
God.
That basically walls off a large segment of fans that can't afford to do that, and it makes it a more corporate environment. Why am I saying this? Well, what that lends to is a lot more tickets available on the secondary market, and we've seen how well the Bills travel, particularly when they go to the southern SEC belt where it's nice weather and they wanna make a weekend out of it. Um, I would be very stunned, Luka, because the Georgia Dome back in the Matt Ryan days used to be one of the loudest, most intimidating places to play, and that defense would use that sound to their advantage. I would be floored if it's not at least 40% Bills fans in that building on Monday.
I I'm with you on the thought process and just understanding that it's just a different world when it comes to these newer stadiums and PSLs and how that operates and affects the ticket market. I think the other caveat and just the other thing you brought up, like SEC belt, and that's where Bills fans like to go. I think in general they just like to go to the games of which you're not going to be at a regular occurrence. It's kind of like the check it off your list situation, right? And understandably, those NFC games happen far and few in between at their stadiums. I mean, traditionally it's once every 8 years. Now with that 17th game, it might happen a little bit more frequently, but ultimately you don't know when the next time this Bills team is going to be visiting the Falcons and going to play in that stadium. I mean, there was a possibility we were playing an AFC championship in that stadium a couple of years ago, but that was a little bit of a one-off situation. It's I'd honestly even put it at 50-50. I would be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a 50-50 situation in Atlanta. I even know of individuals that'll be at that game personally. One of them is actually a Bills fan who is also a low-key Falcons fan. So there's just that little piece of it too.
He'll be happy either way.
No, I mean, it's Bills lean heavily. But it's one of those things where I honestly, this topic to me, Josh, just from a football perspective and just sports fan perspective, I hate the PSL structure and what it does to the resale market and what it does to kind of home field advantage or the lack thereof. I mean, if you don't have a home field advantage, it should be because you suck, to be honest. Like, look at the Sabres in, the past decade plus. They don't have a home ice advantage because they suck and no one wants to go. So therefore you get flooded by Leafs fans, you get flooded by Oilers fans, Vegas fans, blah, blah, blah. That is how it's supposed to work. Not just because the ownership group and how it's built structurally for tickets, you just like, it's like, oh, we want to corporatize ourselves a little bit more. And then naturally it makes it more advantageous to list those tickets and just make them available for whoever wants them. I just think that kind of sucks for teams when they're good, like the Falcons whenever they get good. I mean, they're decent now, not as good as you would like them to be. I think some Falcons fans would admit going into the season, but ultimately I hate what it does to a true home field advantage these days. It's just the reality of how the market works and how these teams want to operate their stadiums.
So the Bills have a bye week coming up after this game, a much needed bye week as they need to get Matt Milano healthy. They need to get, I don't know if we saw that. We always have to put our comments in there, by the way. RIP Sabres. We got a Rangers fan checking in.
Yeah, big one tomorrow. Big one.
Actually, we have 2 Rangers fans checking in. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
No.
You got some work to do on the second one. Bill's got a bye week coming up. From the Falcons' perspective, they are currently 2-2, so they're trying to keep pace with the Bucks. You never want to play a team coming off of a bye. That's the world the Bills find themselves in. But at the flip side, coming off of a loss, good teams generally rebound. I think it's going to be a spot where the Bills historically rebound. I do think it'll be interesting with the bye looming. Does the result of this game impact what happens potentially trade-wise? Because the bye is a perfect spot to make a trade. And I could have seen a scenario where if the Bills had won on the Patriots, or maybe they let Oliver go another week to get 2 extra weeks of rest and, maybe get him some extra rest. Now I think it's going to be a little bit closer to all hands on deck for guys that are able to go, not Milano, obviously. But this is going to be a fun game. I'm excited to see how the Bills come out. It's a unique time as far as starting at 6:15. Is there anything else league wide that you think is interesting? I know the Chiefs are playing the Lions this week. Lions are down a couple of corners. I feel like Mahomes is just going to tear that defense up. But the Lions, I don't think there's a defense out there that can stop them when they're on their A game anyway. I know the Ravens could potentially be getting the first shovel of dirt on them if the Rams go there and win. But I feel like we've seen Matt Stafford and the Rams lose games like this where they're playing a backup quarterback on the road and they still find a way to lose. What tickles your fancy outside of Bills this week? Because we're going to have an entire Sunday to watch a non-Bills slate.
425 CBS, Bengals at Packers.
Ooh.
Are the Bengals actually going to be able to rebound this thing? Did trading for Joe Flacco all of a sudden figure out, hey, Jake Browning wasn't work. We need a Joe under center. We know Burrow's not available. Let's go get Flacco. He's in state. We'll just get him down. And also, I love, just side note, love the memes where it's just the division rivals are all hands on deck. Let's just make sure the Ravens don't win this thing, and let's collude against the Steelers on potentially winning this thing. And let's Bengals, you got to figure it out. Here's Joe Flacco. Like,
I love it.
Is Joe Flacco going to be the answer? I have my doubts, but I am very intrigued. I mean, if it works and Joe Flacco pulls off the funniest thing possible in being 2-0 against the Packers while being on an AFC team both times, that is funny. And I want to see the Bengals at least look better because I need the AFC North to be a little bit more of a fight if I'm a Bills fan or anyone that's not an AFC North team fan. You just don't want anyone to be a runaway. You don't want the Steelers to become a runaway. If Lamar gets back, you don't want their path to be of little resistance. You want them to still have some losses in there, even if Lamar's back. So I want the Bengals to be just competitive enough to beat a nuisance and a problem, Josh. And that game definitely intrigues me. I will say, though, I mean, yeah, the Rams going to play Baltimore, and it's going to be Cooper Kush still there under center, and that's not going to be pretty for the Ravens if they lose that one when it comes to their playoff hopes. It's also just a tough slate overall. There's not a lot going on. I mean, your London game, these poor people overseas, Josh. It's like, hey, we got the Denver Broncos, a promising team coming to town to play the New York Jets, one of the most abysmal teams to watch right now. A team that can't do anything right. Have fun with that one, London. I won't be caring to watch that one intently Sunday morning. There's not too much going on, I think, really. From a Bills fan perspective, first and foremost, there's really not too much going on. Sunday night game, Detroit at Kansas City. I mean, if Detroit can beat Kansas City there, which it feels like they should be able to, of course, boy, I mean, Bills, just do not screw up this opportunity, please. I'll be rooting harder than ever for the Cardinals at Indianapolis. Do I think they have a shot in hell? Absolutely not. But I know the Cardinals are tough. They're a tough watch to watch right now. I don't know. Seattle at Jacksonville is also another game that Jacksonville somehow is sneakily becoming one of the better AFC teams, at least so far. Does anyone believe it? Well, Sam Darnold and the Seahawks need to have them prove it once more. What a weird, Josh, this is a very, very weird NFL season we're approaching here in week 6 with what this slate is breaking out to be.
I just need to ask, run it back. What have you seen from the Jets that makes you worried about that at all? I feel like the NFL is wasting fuel on sending these teams over there, and they should just agree to let the Broncos get a force win. What have you seen? I think you're living in your fears a little bit.
What it take? If I would advise that person to watch the tail end of McAfee's show where they do everything good D bad D with Darius Butler, and he showed a clip from the Jets Cowboys game where the Pickens touchdown. It's a perfect breakdown of the all-22 on this Pickens touchdown. It's a 2 receiver route, and yet they still left Sauce Gardner on an island with 2 high safeties. Why? Like what? Why? Wide receiver 1 is right there. I get it, Sauce Gardner. Why not at least provide some sort of safety help? Yeah. And then off the snap, it is only 2 downfield receivers. What are those safeties seeing? That's like, we can ignore that. Like, that's fine. He's just streaking down the field over there on it's Sauce, though. We're good. And Sauce got torched. So they are a hosh posh disaster right now, the Jets. And that's supposed to be their strength. That is supposed to be what they're good at. And their head coach is supposed to be this defensive minded guy. Like, what a tire fire it is in New York right now. That, yes, if you are any Broncos fan out there, like Run It Back is saying, and you are concerned about losing to the Jets, if the Jets win that game, the Broncos are just back to exactly who we think they are. And Bo Nix is just a up and down roller coaster that he finally gets a win against a playoff caliber QB for the first time in his career. And then all of a sudden loses to Justin Fields and the Jets. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I don't think you have to live in that kind of fear. I think the Broncos will be just fine. Luka, play a game with me here for a second. Let's say the Chiefs get to 2-4 with a loss to the Lions, and then you're thinking, okay, well, they get Rashee Rice back. I'm not going to have you go through the entire schedule here, but I'm going to tell you some of the games remaining. Keep in mind this team is 2-4. In 2 weeks, they welcome in Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. Then they go to Buffalo to play the Buffalo Bills, who we know they don't do well against in the regular season. And then that starts a 3-game stretch of at Bills, at Broncos, home against the Colts. Pretty good. And then they go on a short week to the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And I know the Cowboys, they're kind of a meme. They got a little something going offensively. They can score on anybody, I think. I don't think that's going to be an easy out. And then it softens up a little bit. It goes Texans before they play the Chargers again in a rematch. And they have the Titans, Broncos again, Raiders. The point of this is, Luka, if the Chiefs exit this weekend with 4 losses, you don't have to be the world's biggest Chiefs hater to find 3 or 4 more losses on their schedule and then start to really question if this team's going to miss the playoffs. And what a wild world that is. Are you going to call me an idiot for that? Because I have a second point to make.
No, I don't call you. If they lose to the Lions this week, it is perfectly reasonable to believe that, as you put it, there are let's just call it 3 more losses in there. And if that's 3 more losses, as you just did it, the math would tell you that's 7 losses. That is the absolute minimum or maximum more loss. Like, you cannot let that get to 4. If you get that to 4 and it's 9-8, in all reality, that tells us your likelihood of making the playoffs is generally down to tiebreakers. Like, that's what it would take to get in. And it's crazy. It's crazy to think that this almighty Chief team is staring that right down the face, and it being real. Like, it's not a fantasy. It's not a hater thing, as you put it. It is a very real reality.
All right, let's talk about a scenario that could play out this weekend. You're watching football on Sunday. The Rams, who are favored, go to Baltimore and beat the Ravens to knock them to 1-5. Then you watch Sunday Night Football. I don't know who's favored in that game. I would guess the Chiefs, but I haven't seen a line.
As of right now, it's Chiefs -2.5. Yes.
-2.5. Watch Sunday Night Football. Lions go to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs to knock them to 2-5. Is that right? 2-5? No, we're only in week 6.
2-4.
2-4.
You're 2-4. Yep.
2-4. Then the Bills on Monday Night Football win and get to 5-1. Right before a bye week. You have Lamar Jackson and the Ravens with 1 shovel of dirt on them. You have Kansas City Chiefs at 2-4 with the schedule we just went through. If you're Brandon Beane going into that bye week under that scenario, how could Joe Burrow, we don't know when he's ever going to come back. We talk about the mighty AFC. For all intents and purposes, as Luka likes to say, you have Joe Burrow out of the way. You have a shovel of dirt on Lamar Jackson, and you have Patrick Mahomes fighting for his life to make the playoffs, and you are the betting favorite to win the 1 seed. It will never set up better for Josh Allen in his entire career if that plays out this weekend. If you're Brandon Beane, how do you not go into that bye week and make a massive push the chips in move? I'm not telling you to send 3 firsts for Hendrickson from the Bengals. I would do that. But I'm saying, if you're not Brandon Beane, how do you not go in there and address cornerback or address receiver or just pick up the phone, call every GM you can find, send some mid-round picks for some holes on your roster. You restructure Deion Dawkins to get some cap room to make it all work. You trade Curtis Samuel to get some relief on your roster, and you plug some holes on this roster and you go for it, because holy cow, you're looking at a scenario where no Burrow, potentially no Lamar Jackson, and maybe, just maybe, no Mahomes. You could only have to go through Danny Dimes to get to the Super Bowl and Bo Nix. You go for it.
I, I'm trying to think of a different way to even put it, because you're 1000% on. If you're Brandon Bean, you're being even more aggressive in your thought process of capitalize. That's the GM version of putting your foot on the throat, right? Like, that's like, all right, this is over. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to do it, but I'll go one further. There's a reason you had Patriots fans this week going, okay, let's connect the dots now. AJ Brown's disgruntled at Philadelphia, and who was the guy that was really pissed off when they traded him? Mike Vrabel. Oh, the Ravens might not be anything, and who do they have just sitting there that might be on the ticking end and want to just one more shot at it? Derrick Henry. Who was the guy that loved him the most and got the most out of him? Mike Vrabel. And the Patriots fans are now starting to be like, hey, look at the way the AFC is breaking down right now. It's the Colts, it's the Jags, and it's the Bills, but we just beat them without those players. Let's capitalize on this, because the Ravens might be out of the way. The Chiefs might be out of the way. As you put it, the Bengals are what they are right now and probably out of the way. There is a sense of optimism and opportunity that is there in the NFC that feels like it's going to be a very rare one for years to come. And you have a chance to try to capitalize it at the greatest of heights and get a championship out of it with a path of less resistance than it will be needed in years to come. So why not take advantage of that, and why not be opportunistic? I'm not sitting here saying that the Bills need to be also targeting AJ Brown and Derrick Henry. One, Derrick Henry is absolutely not going to be going from the Ravens to the Bills. AJ Brown probably can't work when it comes to finances and other things to go from the Eagles to the Bills, nor do I think the Eagles, for what it's worth, are trading AJ Brown ever. That would be stupid on their part. But it's just, that's the level of optimism any fan that thinks they have a shot at a title in the AFC should have, because that's how it feels when you see the Chiefs kind of looking down the barrel of a real problem. They're looking down
Problematic.
dog shit, problematic. Thank you, path of getting to the playoffs and needing to really have absolutely no room for error at that point in time to get in. And then the Ravens, for that matter, are, as you put it perfectly, one shovel of dirt on, is assuming they lose to the the Rams. Can you believe the Rams are 7.5-point favorites in Baltimore? I just look at that and I just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That is as big of an opportunity any AFC contender should feel they have. If you're the Chargers, the Patriots, and I'm just throwing the Patriots in there right now because, of course, they're coming off a win and they obviously look like they're on the up. The Bills, of course, the Colts, even the Jags. I'm going to put a little bit of an asterisk on them. I know they're 4-1. I know they just beat the Chiefs. They are one of the most fugazi 4-1s, it feels like, in the league. I don't know if I believe any of it, but they are in there too. And if you truly believe in where your team stands and their ability to make a championship push happen, and you're Brandon Bean and we're the Bills in this case, you come off of that win in Monday night and you are calling every NFL team to see who's available at what cost, so on and so forth. And you absolutely try to address every issue. I'm not saying one of the issues, I mean every issue you have in house to try to lock it up, clean it up, and just absolutely foot on throat capitalize at the opportunity you have in front of you.
It's going to be fascinating to watch play out. This feels like a big swing weekend in the AFC. Can the Ravens fight back and stay alive in this season, or are they going to be up against it for the rest of the year? Can the Chiefs, boy, if the Chiefs get to 3-3 with Rashee Rice coming back, it's going to feel a lot different, even though they did lose to Jacksonville a couple of weekends ago. Go Lions. And, the Bills are in a tricky spot. They have a bye week coming up. This is a team that's coming off of a bye in Atlanta. They're playing at home. I do think the Bills should win this game, but there's no guarantees. And if they fall back to 4-2 and the Patriots beat the Saints, which they should do, now you're in second place in the AFC East just like that. So big swing weekend in the AFC. Hopefully things go the Bills' way. Hopefully it's a situation where we're here next week talking about a big trade that Brandon Beach should make as the Bills are 5-1 on bye, and we are singing the death song of the Ravens and the Patriots and not the Patriots, the Chiefs and the Bengals. I started panicking when I said death song. All right, Luka, here's what's coming up next for us. I will be live on Monday night at halftime for Bills Falcons halftime. Hopefully, it's one of those situations where the Bills are up like 24-3 and we're all feeling good. Nobody's yelling at me like they were this past week, although I'm happy to be your therapist anytime, folks. Good for me too. And then Luka and I will be back on Monday morning with a deep dive into the Atlanta Falcons. One of the rare opportunities for us to do a Bills Chat podcast preview of a game when they have Monday Night Football. Everything you could possibly need to know about this matchup. Latest on the injuries, latest on matchups that we think are favorable to the Bills. Will Darnell Mooney play? Will Ed Oliver play? I don't think Matt Milano will play. I think a big thing to watch this week, not necessarily for this game, but for the near future, is does Max Harrison get activated off injured reserve? Things like that. We'll know the answers to all that on our show that drops Monday morning. And for Luka, I am Josh McCarty, and we will be back next week for a bye-week edition of Bills Chat Live.